Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another CWIT session. What's a CWIT session? I'm so glad you asked. A CWIT session is a pop-up conversation in a pop-up location with a surprise guest. However, I couldn't keep this a surprise. I was too excited about it, so I started putting the word out yesterday. I am joined by the illustrious Chancellor of Indiana University Northwest, Chancellor Ken Iwama. Good morning.
Got it. Good morning. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me. As you know, I am a longtime adjunct instructor here, 20 years plus at Indiana University Northwest, and I have to tell you, I get excited every time I come on campus.
Oh, that
even
is so
now.
Wonderful. That is so wonderful to hear.
Yes.
I love that.
And so you are about almost 2 years in.
Yep.
Can you share with our viewers your road to get to good old IUN?
Well, in terms of my background, I'm an attorney by my background and my profession.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting thing about my career, though, as a lawyer, I focused all my practice on higher education institutions and K through 12.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a former, I worked with some law firms, and I became the general counsel for the Jersey City Public School District, which is the second largest school district in New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I got a really good understanding of K through 12 education, and then I decided I wanted to come to higher education.
Yes.
So I started off as a director of diversity and compliance at the College of Staten Island with the Seton University of New York, and within a very short time I was elevated to chief of staff. Was chief of staff for 2 presidents, then became the founding vice president for economic development, continuing studies, and government relations at the university. And then, after doing that for a while,
Mm-hmm.
I decided I think it was time to throw my hat in the ring. I had this urge to be able to lead in a greater way.
Yes.
And so, IUN Northwest was the first place I applied to, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, I know a lot of chancellors.
Aren't we lucky?
A lot of chancellors and presidents sometimes have to apply different places and find the fit. But
Yes.
it's just the moment I threw my hat in the ring for the search for IUN Northwest new chancellor, 7th chancellor. It just organically went without a hitch.
I think it's like where experience meets opportunity,
Yeah.
and the timing
all
was
of
just
that,
right.
all of that. It was just
Yes.
perfect in
Yes.
so many ways. So
So
that's how I found my way here.
Okay, so I hadn't heard the full story. So
Oh, okay.
that was an education for me. And what I'm hearing, Chancellor, is you've had your hand in a variety of areas that led up to this point. I think that K12 Foundation makes a lot of sense as far
Absolutely.
as the choices young people make on the pathway
Absolutely.
to higher education. Talk a little bit about that time.
Well, having that full breadth of, not just higher education, but understand the pipeline going back all the way to
Yes.
kindergarten has been very vital in my understanding about the pathways for students and the importance of higher education. And, continuing that as soon as I came to IU Northwest, one of the first things I did was, try to connect with superintendents and principals that we haven't really connected in a lot of time. And there's a lot of new faces, but
Yes.
you have to be intentional about these engagements. You have to be intentional about getting into the schools. You have to be intentional about collaborations. And so, my time in K through 12 showed me the difficulty of those jobs and that world. It really,
Yes.
but at the same time, the amazing things that can happen when students do, have that cultivation of being college-minded all the way through the year, and then realizing that, and actually, from senior year in high school, actually going to college, it is so critical now.
Yes.
I think that's for higher education institutions, that's the battle of our time.
Sure.
Getting more and more students to think about college and to understand the value of a degree,
Yes.
which I think somewhat that narrative has been lost over the last couple of years.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to go ahead and give a crazy plug for the region. Aren't the people in Northwest Indiana amazing? What have you found since you've relocated from the East Coast?
Well, there's a lot of similarities and there's some differences, and
Okay.
I'll finish with the comment that you just made. But in terms of, I share this story of when I lived in New Jersey, I worked in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
and you stand on the shore to the Atlantic Ocean in the New Jersey shore,
Jersey Shore.
and you look out, and kind of diagonally to the left, you'll see the skyline of New York City, right,
Mhm.
and all its majesty, right. then when I first came here to Northwest Indiana, because I like the water, made a beeline to I think to Miller Beach in Gary, and I stood on the lakeshore and looked left diagonal and Chicago. So the parallels there, the similarities of being in the shadows of great cities, but feeding off that energy from great cities, but also not necessarily being in a big city,
right?
But
very convenient for us.
Yeah, and this beautiful benefit of lake and natural resources and great towns.
Yes.
And it is wonderful. And along what you said, I think one of the quick adjustments was how kind everyone is here, right?
Yeah.
I think
we can't help it.
Yeah, deep down, I think a lot of people are the same, right? In terms of how they feel and their compassion, hopefully, towards others. But I think in the Northeast sometimes there's a couple layers there. People are used to just kind of being not social.
Yes.
But when we first came here, me and my wife Joanne, it was completely the opposite, and the overwhelming. I mean, everywhere, from stores,
absolutely,
government agencies.
It's
just, and so that's a remarkable aspect of Northwest India, which I've come to love.
So now, Chancellor, we can't obviously avoid the circumstances under which you joined. I mean, you come to the community, we're like, yay, we have a new chancellor, and we have a pandemic. And so it is our hope that we're gradually getting on the other side of it. Talk about your goals as far as being able to immerse yourself in the community. I mean, for real, you really have. You're serving on boards. Thanks for your love for the Urban League and others.
Absolutely.
But I know you want to do more.
Yeah, so it's interesting about leadership, right? You don't necessarily pick the time of being leadership. You don't pick your time of being born in the era that you're in, and global events that may impact your leadership. But you're absolutely right. I came to IU Northwest in August of 2020, started here in August 2020 in the midst of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So the leadership kind of shifted from other things that we normally know, normal business in a university, including the community engagement. Everything really became hyper-focused on the health and safety of our students and faculty and staff, right? In alignment with our surrounding communities.
Yeah, and you made us stop coming to campus. And that was my fave.
I know,
to be with my senior citizens.
Think about me, I came here to be a chancellor of a vibrant campus, which it is when we don't have a pandemic, but I was joking the other day with some students. I'm looking around saying, "Where's everybody?"
Right.
The campus is, there's nobody here because we're remote. When I first came here and helped that transition back, but so as a leader, I try to look at the glass half full in some place in the midst of this tremendous tragedy and this tremendous hardship. During times of trouble, you can either pull apart or come together, and we've seen the pull apart across our country. We've seen the conflict, we've seen the anger, whether it's vaccinations, masks, or anything else. And I have to say, the great thing about leading or being a leader of IU Northwest is that we use that time to come together.
Yes.
And I have a pin. I didn't wear it today. I just got my IU pin today. But there's another pin that we have that we made called "We're in This Together" pin. And that was a reflection. I did that mid-year, my first year here, because I was just so amazed. And you talk about the kindness of people, but how even in the midst of not knowing what's going to happen, anxiety, fear, right? We chose to come together and support each other, and that's why the outcomes of our safety here was so elevated and so excellent. It's a success
really
in every way, in terms of testing, in terms of not having any major outbreaks here, in terms of everybody taking responsibility for not only their own health, but in some ways the health of others as well too.
And I would add on to that, Chancellor, from a technology standpoint, while I did miss my students, the team that I work with in CURE jumped right in to make sure that we had everything we needed from a virtual standpoint. We were still able to teach the classes, and so the education didn't stop.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and that ability, again, that term, hope that we probably getting sick of hearing, pivoting.
Pivoting, yes.
Those two words, unprecedented and pivoting. We hear that all the time.
All the time.
But the ability to pivot with our university IT people and the faculty and the students, that you have to embrace the technology as well.
That's right.
And during that extremely difficult time, I think we just had the infrastructure ready to be able to do that, and the people wanting to continue to educate our students. I think that's the mission's always driving that. Now, that being said, from my perspective, nothing replaces in person.
Ever.
Right?
It never
Nothing.
will.
Our students, especially regional campus students who strive for that small classrooms, that personalized contact with
Yes.
faculty and staff,
Yes.
that is our signature.
Yes.
And so we have no desire to be a fully online university, and we have no desire to really lessen what makes us strong.
That's great news.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so that's why we came back,
Yes.
in last fall, and transitioned back, and we continue to repopulate and
Yes.
re-energize our campus. And now, as you had mentioned before, now the latest, as the Omicron is subsiding, I can really sink my teeth into integrating and intersecting with our community.
Yes.
Later today I'll be speaking to a Rotary. I've done that past. A lot of it has been virtual, right?
Mhm.
So again,
They're going to see the Chancellor.
yeah, I've done a lot of the community connections, but it's been virtual. A lot of
Yes.
it. Some of it in person when we can be safe, but a lot of it's
Yes.
virtual. So now we're just scaling up now the in-person interactions, like I said, which is
Like
you can't
today.
replace it, like today.
This
and
is
so
great.
this is what I look forward to. This is what I get up in the morning to do.
So we are in the season of, how do we say it? FAFSA, financial aid assistance.
Yeah.
And I have been working with my esteemed colleague, Dr. Dorothy Frank, on enrollment measures and just making sure that everybody knows that IUN is Indiana University Northwest is the place to be.
Thank you so much.
And the assistance that we are providing parents,
That's wonderful.
families,
Absolutely.
students, non-traditional students in and outside of the community to be successful to even get here
Absolutely.
is amazing. Talk a little bit about that and how proud you are of our enrollment efforts.
Enrollment is, especially, during the pandemic when we saw the slide in enrollment. And
Across
I understand,
the country.
Across the country, not just especially public regional universities, right? Because, the pandemic set forth, again, use that word again, a series of unprecedented impacts, right?
Events.
First
yes.
of all, when you're in the schools, especially if you're a senior, and you're not at school,
Yeah.
and you're not having that daily interaction with guidance counselors and advisors on the high school level, right? And then we're not able to get into the schools.
Right.
We're not able to have, the fairs, the college
Yes,
fairs and things like
yes.
that, which kind of plagued us for the worst of it when it first hit,
Indeed.
2020, 2021. So, the fact now that things are opening up and we can provide those in-person supports, which we're, like you said, we're known for. Right?
Yes.
It's that personalized touch
Yes.
where it's just not a computer, it's just not go to the website, but actual people can help you, and the people here, they like to help you as well
Yes.
too. I think that's critically important, and it's coming back. Right?
Yes,
That's
and I can give a prime example. Our students over at Westside Leadership Academy, Indiana University Northwest has almost become their second home. They've been coming over for boot
Oh, that
camps
was so
and
exciting the other day when we had
Yes.
150 students from Westside Leadership on our campus.
Yes.
And, I was like, oh, the vibrancy of that.
Absolutely, and
And
the feedback has been amazing from the students.
oh, good.
Just so you know.
I'm so happy, that this should be their home.
Yes, yes.
And when I said to the students, I want to see you walking on campus as a Red Hawk,
Yes.
as an IU Northwest Red Hawk. But, the thing that I try to communicate to students, because again, I think some of the narrative has been lost over the last decade or more about the value of higher education. It's twofold. One is economic, right? Even though there are jobs out there, right? Because the Great Resignation, right?
Yes.
And, especially in the service industry and other entry-level positions, there are jobs out there, and they're paying pretty well.
Yes.
Some of them as well too, because they're having shortage as well too. But for the long term, and I always think about the long term because all best investments are long-term investments,
Absolutely.
right? Not short, quick. There's nothing better than a higher education degree, and we did an economic development study about a year and a half ago, Indiana University did, assessing the impact of our campuses on our communities, our respective communities. And the report determined that IU Northwest had about a $264 million impact, in terms of increased wages, in terms of increased wages for the firms that our graduates work, in terms of our procurement, in terms of our operations spending in region.
Yes.
That's significant. Another aspect of that study determined that our graduates on average make about $20,000 more a year.
Can you say that again, Chancellor?
Our graduates make about $20,000 or more a year on
back.
average.
I love it.
On average than somebody with a high school degree. So and that's just average. So
Yes.
the people are beating that average as well too.
Yes.
But over lifetime employment, you're talking close to $1 million
That's very
of differential.
significant.
So,
Yes.
so I always tell students, from a pure economic, and it's especially since with our financial aid, with our scholarships, we have one of the lowest net tuitions, lowest net costs for students across the state as well too, for 4-year comprehensive public university.
That is
so,
awesome.
so you do the return on investment, and you look at the cost. This is the perfect place, and and that's not a sales pitch. That's reality.
Yeah.
And but the second thing though, and I think in some ways it's more important than the economics. Although sometimes economics is a real aspect
It's
of how
very real.
that. It really is, and you see the new billboards coming up around. I don't know if
Yes,
you've seen some
I do.
of them.
You know I'm all about branding, Chancellor. I'm watching.
Because we wanted to change the billboard, and our marketing communications teams helped us get these new images,
are
more
amazing.
vibrant images of our real students up there. But it says, "Become your best you," and that could be seen as just a slogan, or it could be seen as really representative of what we do here, in terms of helping students realize themselves, self-actualization, and that doesn't have a price tag sometimes.
That's right.
Some of my greatest growth I have in my life happened in college. And being around in person with other students, dealing with different ideas, right? Diverse ideas,
and still having those relationships long term.
And challenging yourselves about how you think. That is the preparation for your self-growth, because if you're not challenged, you're not growing, right? And the university, especially, this is a place where you can be challenged in a civil way, express your ideas, have people say, that's not my experience. And how important is that to become your best you and to realize these things early on, is that it prepares you for the workplace.
Absolutely.
How many people go into the workplace not having these experiences, and they'll implode in the workplace, or not advance in the workplace, or generate conflict themselves in the workplace. They don't understand, other people, where they come from, what their experiences are. And so this, especially at Northwest, being such a diverse community as well, so it gives that opportunity to really grow as a human being. And again, that probably has an economic impact as well too, in terms of your success moving forward. But that is so critical.
Chancellor, as I'm thinking, as we get ready to wrap up, but I'm thinking about, you gave your history of the different areas that you've previously been employed, and you talked a little bit about diversity. I heard that word come in.
Yeah.
How has that played here in your role? And we have a diverse community, a diverse campus, so I'm sure you were able to implement your expertise in that area to ensure that we continue to push those types of initiatives.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll even go back to the first time I saw the leadership perspectives for this job, right? And I opened it up. And what does, I think, a good chancellor or president do initially? They look at the makeup of the students, right?
Yes.
And I contradicted some perceptions I had about the Midwest, right? Because I looked at the demographics. It was remarkably similar to New York City and the College of Staten Island, where I work, in terms of the diversity of the students. And so that was an initial attraction for me. And then upon getting here as well, one of the major things that had happened, we became a Hispanic serving and a minority serving institution as well too. So we are growing our diversity and our diverse cohorts of students, and
as well as staff.
Exactly, and faculty.
Yes.
And because I think you just can't have student diversity; you have to have from all robust throughout, right?
Yes.
So that is a consistent driver for me about the students I want to help and serve. And the type of university that I want to, hopefully lead in an effective way.
Yes.
But so it will continue to be a driver for us. We just, we're in the process of completing a strategic plan, and although nothing has been finalized, one of those major pillars, we're only picking 5 major pillars about where to advance it, is diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Perfect.
So we're going to be spending a lot of time over the next 5 years, and hopefully forever, really concentrating on that concept of belongingness, right? You
Yes.
know, and so you could have, you can look at students and faculty and staff as just percentage numbers, but once you get beyond those numbers,
Yes.
right, what are you doing to make people feel that they're welcome and they belong, that their opinions count, and that they matter, right? And it's a supportive environment. So all that is being done,
Yes.
and it is a critical aspect to our mission and our future, and will continue to be.
Well said. You have been watching a CWIT session, a conversation with the Chancellor of Indiana University Northwest, located right here in beautiful Gary, Indiana, 3400 Broadway. Chancellor, I have to have you back. And one thing I will say in closing is that in addition to all the amenities that you have shared about being on campus, I want to emphasize how much that IU Northwest is in the community. So I'm in the community a lot where there are any type of banquets and fundraisers. IUN is at the table. And so I just want to say we recognize that. We recognize the corporate backing that you offer, as well as the community
Thank you
support
so much.
and the visibility.
And not only we're going to maintain that, we're going to increase that.
Ante up. I
Okay,
love it.
so you got me on tape now, Sam.
Yes, we are live.
Can't back away from that
And
statement.
exactly. We will hold you accountable, and
Okay.
I know you will not disappoint. I want to thank everyone for watching today. Please share this video, and please visit iun.edu to enroll your student today, or you get enrolled.
Absolutely.
We will welcome you with open arms. Chancellor, it has been my honor.
Thank you so much. This is great.
We'll see you
Take
next
care.
time.